stream catches up.
Yeah, so DK has been around only for a little while, but he's actually already climbed up to the number 8 spot in the SRL rankings, and he's been doing very good work lately. So in addition to Mr. Holmes, of course, who is constantly contending for that number 1 overall spot, we have Monsieur Slime and Tundra is relatively new too, and actually Monsieur Slime only started playing as of the summer tournament, so a combination of some newer runners and some veterans here, but definitely a lot of talent in the field today.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm definitely looking forward to just watching the race and seeing how it progresses as we have a Silver Harp in the castle. And we also have a town across the water here, so looking for some enemies that we can hit pretty easily. We're able to take on a Drakey, no problem. That Druid's probably going to be a little high, but for the most part, it seems like we've got a pretty fair opening zone.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you've got the heal spell to start, and it looked like on a stat screen check I saw a double-digit strength, so you're in pretty good shape there as long as the enemies don't have any particularly difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, you know, this is the kind of start that you want to look for. You're going to be looking to take on enemies that are well within your attack power, and the first level getting some single-digit stat gains, and the spell of Stop Spell and Repel, I think is what I saw there. And so getting a couple of spells early on, got a nice MP gain, 8 MP.
Yeah, also nice when you have kind of the lower level spells and you get even just a little bit of MP, so you have a couple more casts that can keep you in the field that much longer. I think Monsieur Slime's on his way up to level 3.
Yeah, absolutely. 12 HP, wow. Okay, so these runners are getting quite a bit of resources to start with. I mean, 9 MP actually really isn't that bad to start out with when you have the heal spell.
We see there the regular old slime. The garden variety slime has the Hurt More spell. Mr. Holmes just got tagged before he could pull.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there. Meanwhile, Monsieur Slime has yet to take a death and is deciding to branch out a little bit and see what he can find in the world. We've got quite a bit of plains tiles here, so much lower encounter rate is nice for exploration. Until an Axe Night.
Until an Axe Night, that particular phrase has ended many a runner's trip into the overworld.
Absolutely. The Axe Knight being a Charlock level enemy, we are not going to be taking them on, at least until we get the Hurt More spell. And with all these decent starting stats and decent gains, I can imagine that agility is probably going to be dwindling down a little bit. Got a little unlucky and failed to run from the Axe Knight. It's unfortunate. Wizards have sleep.
Ooh, actually, the Diet Wombo there looks like the Sleep Hurt More combination.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be an enemy that we are looking to avoid at all costs.
Yeah, speaking of, I did catch about half a minute ago, I think it was, DK had strayed a little bit too far to the west, caught his own with a werewolf, and immediately got Dragon Lord Breath, so that's another Charlock enemy that has a possibly dangerous ability.
Yeah, that is definitely not something that you like to see. You like to see your Dragon Lord Breath on mid-tier enemies.
Yeah, you want to keep that out of Charlock if at all possible.
Okay, well, DK at 9146 just ran into a wizard. It didn't cast sleep on him, just attacked, so maybe we'll see a low sleep chance with him. Let's keep our fingers crossed there.
Yeah, definitely. Even the sort of weaker monsters from the Charlock tier, you know, you can, if you have low agility or just get unlucky, you can get run blocked, and then all it takes is one sleep for an enemy like that, and you can get sent back, so that's potentially something to keep in mind for much later in the season.
Yeah, and it's definitely nice information to have before you actually go for that Charlock area, so that way that you kind of know what you're already walking into before you actually go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of the worst if you just haven't seen a certain enemy at all. Say, for instance, you're out walking around, you finish everything, you get into Charlock, and all of a sudden realize this is the first golem you've seen or something like that, and you don't know what you're dealing with. So, DK picked up level 4 there. I did not catch the stat.
I didn't catch the stats either, but it looks like Monsieur Slime, if he can take down this droll, will be able to get it. And there we go. Get 2 power, 12 HP, 11 MP, and the Spell of Radiant.
Yeah, so you'll definitely take that, I think. Don't like to see the empty agility level. It's still kind of on the lower side. We've only got 12 right now on level 4, so you're hoping that'll pick up a little bit. Mr. Holmes has found coal, but it looks like that search spot was empty. Another town directly to the north.
And Hawk's Nest. So 2 search spots pretty close together. That might be a viable grind spot later in the game, depending upon what that tile is.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can find a spike tile that's in close proximity to a town. And so if the tile is decent, that might be the choice for the endgame grind here in this.
Yeah, meanwhile, Monsieur Slime continuing to grind, as is DK9146. A pretty respectable move, if you ask me. This is definitely the move that I would take for right now. Getting some exploration out of the way is definitely an advantage to Mr. Holmes, but level 4 had a lot of HP, so that would extend the amount that he could potentially explore.
Right, exactly. And because you have spells that can get you by some of these early game enemies like the Drolls pretty easily, that level 5 at least comes pretty quickly. So I think grinding early is a good choice. Monsieur Slime unfortunately trying to get away from one of those regular slimes and got run blocked and then got hurt more, so he wasn't able to continue his grind. At least it was temporarily halted.
Yeah, I don't mind the Drolls here. The Drolls are okay. We're able to take them down relatively quickly, but the Drone is a much quicker enemy for us to take down. We're dealing just a little bit more damage, and that can make the difference here.
Yeah, neither are, particularly efficient enemies, but when you're in this situation with the spells and the statistics that you have, and it seems like there are a lot of dangerous enemies in the other zones, this is probably about the best you can hope for these kinds of enemies right here.
Absolutely, and level 5 bringing 9 power, 5 speed, 1 HP, and 5 MP. And it looks like Tundra has found coal as well, making his hero run over there.
Yep, a disappointing find. We'll get a look at the coal shop though too. I didn't see this when Mr. Holmes was through the first time. Looks like we've got flame sword and magic armor there, as well as some lower tier stuff. Tundra is going to pick up a set of clothes. It'll provide a little bit of extra defense, which actually isn't too bad an idea right now, especially with their low agility. The defense is quite poor. So picking up even a couple points can help you break some of these early game enemies.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing there with the clothes is that we're fighting Drolls. And Drolls, they can deal a decent amount of damage to this lower tier agility. So it's going to help him conserve on some resources so he can be on the overworld grinding a little bit longer.
Exactly. Looks like right now we've got, let's see, I did just see that Poltergeist also had weak breath, so that's not fun. Mr. Holmes looks like he's going to try to take it on. But DK and Monsieur Slime about neck and neck right now. Of course, we're very early in. fewer than 10 minutes in right now, but it's interesting to see the different strategies and how they'll play out so far. We've had a couple of relatively empty coal runs and not much else, and just a little bit of grinding. So we'll see how things go as we approach level 6 here.
And Scorpions have the spell of sleep, so using Stop Spell on them is going to be the way to go. But Tundra was able to take down that Scorpion, get himself a little bit more gold, so that way that he can return to coal and get a full refill here.
DK seems to have found a little peninsula that he likes here. I think this is the same zone. It's got drolls here. So this, if he takes down this droll, and he should, using that stop spell to interrupt the droll's stop spells is very helpful, and we'll see what level 6 is pretty shortly here.
Yeah, and the really nice thing about running into an enemy that you can actually fight against with the sleep spell or the stop spell is that stop spell and sleep, the enemy determines whether it's going to use that first. So 11 power, 9 speed, I believe that was 4 HP and 5 MP. So level 6 bringing a little more. It's definitely nice when the stats just kind of steadily climb instead of having one stat that's just way above the others.
Yeah, that 9 agility is definitely welcome. Getting up into the 20s range is certainly more favorable around level 6. You'd like to see it a little higher, but that's a healthy gain on that level, so.
Absolutely, and Monsieur Slime has found coal. We'll find his empty search spot, but he stayed alive a little longer, so we might see him make a couple more purchases here. And Tundra making use of the sleep spell to take on the Metal Scorpion. An excellent play. Nice experience 31 pickup there.
Yeah, that's very nice. I thought it was interesting. Monsieur Slime did have that gold. He had possibly an opportunity to buy some clothes and a small shield, but seems to have opted out of it. Or is he going back now? I think he's going back.
And Mr. Holmes got a little bit of luck on his side. Stop spell resistance is actually randomized in the randomizer, and he got lucky, and the wizard is actually susceptible to stop spell. So that's going to be something to keep in mind for later Charlock.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get a test case on an enemy like that early on in a seed when taking a death isn't going to cost you a lot of exploration territory or something like that, I think it's usually a good idea to do so to start to gauge what resistances the enemies might have.
Alright, and if Monsieur Slime heads south here and a little west, he'll see the other cave in the town that was right across from Tantagel. And DK falling to a rogue scorpion, just a little ouch, with the Dragon Lord breath there on the rogue scorpion. And the town was Cantlin. And he's picking up a couple of herbs here. I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up a dragon scale here as well. But opts out and picks up an extra herb and a torch.
So don't look now, but Mr. Holmes is now, at least for the moment, in the experience lead for the runners on stream, was able to catch up pretty quickly with some good grinding technique. Also picked up some clothes and a small shield for himself. That doesn't seem like much, but that's 6 defense altogether, and that actually can really help you in the early game.
Absolutely, and a copper sword is available at Cantlin, so we might see him try to pick up a little extra gold here. That looks exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of feel badly for Monsieur Slime. I think he intended to save that gold, maybe hoping to find a copper sword somewhere else, but he then bought the small shield, found Cantlin immediately, and then didn't have enough for it, so he opted to buy those herbs instead, at least speculatively. So, just kind of an unlucky break there.
And another unlucky break. The back attack to the werewolf leading into Dragon Lord Breath is very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's bad news. But the agility, as we said, it's quite low right now, so those later game enemies are going to back attack you relatively frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing about the werewolf, though, is that the werewolf is a tier 2 enemy, so he'll lose over half of his agility for all agility calculations.
So I think, speaking of those Charlock enemies, Mr. Holmes ran into an armored knight, and I think managed to get away. And then got out of that zone in a hurry.
Agility is nothing more than a number.
It's all about how you roll, man.
And Mr. Holmes finds his jerk cave just outside of Cantlin, but that copper sword is going to give him a huge advantage. 10 attack power is definitely nothing to scoff at.
Absolutely. It's a really big deal to be able to bump up your expected damage output in that way. Again, these early game items don't seem like much, but they're extremely cost efficient, and they can make the difference between having to make, 4 swings against a given enemy versus having to make 3, so on and so forth. So that saves you time and resources.
Oh wow, and there's another town and a cave here. Looked like it was Tablet. Yep, it is Tablet, so he's going to check that and then bump out and immediately check that town. And that was just north of Cantlin.
So something... sorry to interrupt there. We'll see what's in Erdrick's cave here in a moment, but I'll wait for that before I point out what I was going to point out. Oh, that's big time.
That is huge. Holy cow.
Free
Mr.
key in
Holmes.
Erdrick's cave. Wow. That's
yeah, that is huge.
So what does when you... Sorry. What that does is when you get a free key like that, it means even if you haven't found Remolder yet, you have access to the back of Tantagel Castle. So if you have enough gold, you can buy keys there instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just going to prompt what it was that you were going to point out before the cave.
Yeah, I figured that's what it was. Oh, and of course he now just walks straight into Remolder, so...
Might as well take the cheap keys while you can.
Absolutely, save some gold. One other thing I was going to point out, it was interesting, I think Monsieur Slime, I wasn't sure if it was by accident or if he had just become dissatisfied with the opening grind zone, but he did try the Silver Harp at least once and I think got bopped for his efforts, so I think that that strategy went away pretty quickly if it wasn't a mistake. But here comes level 7 for DK.
Power and a spell. Hurt more. Holy cow, here we go. Alright, so Hurtmore is going to be huge here. Level 7, that's actually a pretty decent level to get Hurtmore, because you have a little bit of MP to work with, so it's not quite so much of a hassle here. Mr. Holmes getting a magic key back from Tantagel Treasury as well as the Stones of Sunlight, so his searching for all the items is rapidly coming to a close.
Yeah, it just needs that token and then to find the Shrine Cave to trade that Silver Harp for the Staff of Rain. But making some pretty good progress right now. What remains to be seen is now that DK has Hurtmore, is he going to be able to start to build an experience lead before everybody else finishes with their errands that they're currently undertaking, and I don't know whether he'll get that shot or not. Checking the Cantlin shops currently. Probably also a good idea because we know that there is a gold grind available.
Smashy pointing out Erdrick's bazooka for Hurtmore. Hawksness definitely is a great play. Mr. Holmes picking up the Death Necklace, and I'm not sure what that was.
It looked like the fighter's ring there was that he had the gold grind on because he'd been inside the treasury already, and this is in the basement of Tantagel, so due to that chest glitch, it'll sometimes report items inaccurately when you open chests.
Yep, absolutely. And he picked up the death necklace as well, and that might come into play, it might not, who knows. But having the grave here in Tantagel means that Mr. Holmes can grind for the Silver Shield, Flame Sword, and the magic armor pretty much right at the beginning of the game.
Also knows where Cantlin is. I did not see what was in the bottom Cantlin shop when DK made his check, so I'm not quite sure whether or not we've seen a Silver Shield yet. If anybody has seen it in chat, I hope they would correct.
The Silver Shield was in either the bottom shop or the top shop. I know that I saw one in Cantlin.
Okay, great. So yeah, that does make that opportunity available. Now, whether Mr. Holmes has seen that yet, I'm not quite sure. I know he's been... has he been to Cantlin? I guess he would have been.
Yes, he has been to Cantlin, and he bought his copper sword from the top shop. The top shop.
Right, exactly. Okay. So he's well on his way here. He's actually only about a couple of experience, about 25 experience away, actually, from level 7 and picking up his Hurtmore spell. And I think he's headed toward the bottom grave chest right now.
Yeah, luckily that Rogue Scorpion decided to be nice and not breathe fire on him.
Yeah, this is a pretty treacherous dive to the bottom chest here, it looks like. You've got some stone men, and we have those DL2 breath Rogue Scorpions. The Rogue Scorpions themselves can be tough to get away from because they have pretty high agility. So he's had a good run so far. We'll see if he makes it down there.
Well, the nice thing about the enemy set that he has is that he's got a couple of really weak enemies. I've seen a magician and a ghost. And then also, gold. Oh, that is huge.
Yeah, so he gets... yeah.
Yeah, that is huge. Anyways, as you were saying.
No, I was just going to point out, now, even if... so now he doesn't have to go through the process of activating this gold grind again. It's basically built in. He can choose to take as much gold as he wants for the equipment he'd like, and see if he can get back to Cantlin with that money.
Yes, I agree with you, Spashy. That is a big nope. Red Dragon on the spike tile in Hawksness. I also saw Tundra fall to a Goldman Hawksness as well.
So yeah, Hurtmore's not going to do much for you in Hawksness right now, it looks like.
I wonder if Mr. Holmes is going to attempt to walk out, or if he's going to just grind past the necessary gold and take a death ward.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because you have to think, okay, is it going to take more time for me to reactivate this gold glitch, or can I just grind all the way to, twice the amount of gold I need, and then take a death so that I still have the money I want to make the purchases I'd like? So in this case, I think it probably does make sense for him to just take double the money and then take a death warp to get out of here, because otherwise you have to go through all the rigmarole of activating the gold grind again.
Yeah, absolutely, and I definitely agree with that as well, but you're almost at max gold for all 3 items if you're going to double it up.
That is true, so it'll be interesting to see what his decision is here as he continues to grind, if he's going to go all the way, or if he's just going to look for, I don't know, maybe a silver shield and one of the other pieces of equipment.
Oh yeah, he's definitely going for double gold. He is not taking any chances, he is just going for it.
So Monsieur Slime on his way to the Remolder chest here. I don't know that we'd seen that to this point. Mr. Holmes might have taken a peek, but I had missed it, and it was a dragon scale, which he'll promptly equip. So that was about 100 gold worth of keys spent on a $20 item, or 20 gold item, but he'll take that anyway. Didn't have a scale to that point. It's worth 2 defense, and that's at least a little bit helpful.
Yeah, I agree, Smashy, but he's been productive. So I don't think that it's going to be as big of a hit to Mr. Holmes as it could be.
Gets the prompt death warp anyway. Got the back attack breath from the rogue scorpion, so he gets to head back to the throne room with immediacy.
Oh, that is disgusting. Red dragons have Dragon Lord breath.
Well, that made a bad Hawksness situation even worse. We don't know what any of this... We know that the coal search spot is empty, so it means that the armor has to be either on the Overworld coordinates or in Hawksness. And if it's in Hawksness, that means you've got to fight a breath-freezing red dragon in order to dig your armor out of there. That could be a huge problem if it's the case.
Absolutely, and the other part of the equation here is that the real unfortunate side of it is that the red dragon has the highest HP of any random enemy.
Looks like Tundra is grabbing his free key from Erdrick's cave. Monsieur Slime has cleared the treasury and is on his way to the basement, so we'll see if he has the same good fortune on his run as Mr. Holmes did on his way down here. Now, what Monsieur Slime does have is the spell of Hurtmore, so some of those enemies, like the rogue scorpions, instead of being extremely dangerous, will actually be really good sources of experience, provided he's not back attacked by them.
Absolutely, and Mr. Holmes making excellent use of that stop spell knowledge that he has against the wizard. Makes it too cold, will be purchasing his magic armor and his flame sword. Or no, actually, he'll only be doing the flame sword, I think.
Yeah, I think he's going to save the rest of that bank for the silver shield, I would guess. Expecting at least that he'll be able to get the armor relatively easily, but of course we know that that might not necessarily be the case. I'm interested to see when someone decides to check those Cantlin coordinates. Mr. Holmes might actually do that on this trip.
Yeah, with the heal spell, our HP isn't super good for it, but we have more than enough MP to compensate for it. Settling for the half plate. Okay, I see what we're doing here. So a little while back, I was actually watching one of his streams where he was playing with the idea of doing the half plate armor instead of the full plate armor until you get Erdrick's armor, and it wasn't quite working out as well as he could have. But the half plate armor is actually really decent, so that might just be all he needs.
Yeah, it's interesting, the scaling in this game as far as the equipment goes, is that the weakest equipment that you can get, like say the clothes, are actually the most cost efficient in terms of defense. You're paying a small amount of gold for basically a 1-to-1 or 1-to-10 amount of defense, whereas the further you go up that scale, then you're actually paying more. But of course, some of those late game items, like the silver shield that Mr. Holmes acquired, is worth 20 defense, and you really can't get that from any other single piece of equipment other than those late game items.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Holmes picking up his level 7, definitely going to be facepalming a little bit. He did pick up the spell of Hurtmore. We're probably going to see him head straight to Hawksness now.
Speaking of levels, DK picking up level 9 as we speak. 6, 17, 10, and 7, so another very healthy level and a big agility boost on that one.
Mr. Holmes falling to a green dragon, which is kind of expected at this level.
Yeah, the HP just isn't quite there yet. If you get back attacked, or if you're not on full resources getting into a battle like that one, if you're hurt more, especially on a fight like the Green Dragon, if it doesn't kill it first turn, you stand a decent shot of taking a fall there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, his HP is high enough to survive 2 attacks. He walked in with a little lower HP than would have been optimal for that, but I mean, still, might as well take the opportunity of a one-shot hurt more there. Looking like a pretty brutal Hawksness, though. I've seen Golem for a random enemy, and I've now seen Green Dragon. So looking for a little bit harder of an enemy zone.
Yeah, these coordinates, by the way, 23 south, 24 west, but the way that the continent is shaped, I don't necessarily know how countable this is. And the zone to the west there is just fraught with those Charlock enemies. That's the zone, I believe, you'll have to go through the zone that we first saw those werewolves with Dragonlord Breath to get to those coordinates, I think. It's a little bit difficult to tell because there's a lot of rivers to that side of the map and it's kind of winding.
I did see a bridge down there. I don't know if it was to a Spark Over tile, but...
Oh, that's an Axe Knight with Dragonlord 2 Breath. Oh, man.
Okay, what is this? That's rough. So that's 2 grindable enemies that have Dragonlord Breath.
And 4 total that we know of so far for the Charlock set, including the Red Dragon, which occupies the Hawksness Spike tile. So this might be some rough sledding. Despite some decent stat gains and some actually probably satisfactory exploration to this point, the enemy sets have proven to be very brutal. I think Mr. Holmes is still trying to make his way over to see what the Spike tile is, and he's going to be as disappointed as everybody else has been who's seen it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, he's gonna go for a stop spell.
Yeah, he went for the preemptive stop spell. That's really interesting, but didn't get anywhere. However, we didn't see a breath in those 2 attacks, so we might at least be able to hold out a little bit of hope that it's a small percentage on that breath attack for the Red Dragon. Something more toward the 50 or 25% range than the 75% range.
We're definitely hoping for 25. 50 is more likely. I've seen 1 fire breath and 1 attack. That's not really a lot of knowledge to go off of, but definitely hoping out for that. And Mr. Holmes attempting to hurt more on this Axe Knight, even though he's seen the breath. You have a pretty good shot of one-shotting them with hurt more, so that's a really good play.
Yeah, barring a hurt more miss, you're about 60% to hurt more an Axe Knight in one shot. And so, given you're not highly likely to run away from it at this stage, I think the hurt more is a good play, and he's hurt more 2 of them to pick up level 8, so that worked out.
Yeah, really very, very quickly closing the experience gap between him and the other runners there. DK has a lead on him, as does Monsieur Slime. And I think that actually grinding those Axe Knights for a little bit, since it's so close to Tantagel, might not be a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's not looking to keep any gold or anything like that, so if he takes a death close to Tantagel Castle, it's not a huge time loss. So if you have a zone like that that's maybe a little bit of a risky grind, but you have hurt more, it's sometimes not a bad idea to go ahead and fling yourself at that anyway to try to pick up some quick experience, especially if you feel like you might be behind. Since Mr. Holmes took a little while to get between level 6 and level 7 as he was running errands, he might feel that way right now.
Yeah, absolutely, but a lot of the enemies on the overworld that we've seen are pretty susceptible to hurt more. So continuing exploring while burning those hurt mores is actually a pretty decent idea, I think. So I mean, it's a coin toss either way, and personal preference, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think either play is probably good. It kind of comes down to your play style and what you're most comfortable with, and also I think to a certain extent what else you have to look for. Mr. Holmes probably is still trying to find, he's still trying to find Erdrick's token here as the last key item he needs at least, as well as Erdrick's sword. And it's interesting, we have these coordinates, but I don't think we've really seen anybody make a play at them just yet.
Well, I think that everybody has wandered to the west and saw those fire-breathing werewolves over there, as well as the wizards with sleep and hurt more. So I know that at least Mr. Holmes has seen both of them. So that's probably a big part of it. 6, 17, 10, and 7 is not terrible for level 9. but want to see a little more attack power if we're going to take on that red dragon.
Yeah, and some hit points as well. If it turns out the armor is on that tile, you're going to need enough HP to be absorbing Dragon Lord Breath attacks and trying to wedge in attacks around Healmores, probably once you actually get the Healmore spell. And of course, that fight's not even going to be possible until that happens. So at level 9, no Healmore yet.
Yeah, but at this point, I think that's probably going to be in the back of our runners' minds. It's not something that's really at the forefront of it. It's going to be a while before we can even think about taking on that red dragon.
That's for sure.
And Smashy pointing out in chat, the agility is actually really, really good. There are a lot of enemies on the overworld that have Dragon Lord Breath. One of our spike tile enemies has it. It happens to be a red dragon, so agility is actually going to be pretty key here. And man, they walked through this swamp zone without encountering too much trouble before, and now Mr. Holmes is running into red dragons, armored knights, all kinds of things.
Yeah, the zones have a way of playing tricks on you like that sometimes. You'll think it's perfectly safe, you've been through 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden you start pulling these Charlock enemies that are really dangerous, and you just go, where were those before?
Absolutely, and Monsieur Slime has managed to print some money. Unfortunately, gets back attacked by a wizard and is blocked right away. Takes a death to the wizard, and Tundra also printing money, looking to pick up all 3 items there, with his gold total continuing to climb past the 30,000 mark.
Yeah, Monsieur Slime saved his up, so he reset immediately upon that wizard death. He's going to try to get back to Caitlin again, I assume, or at least to make an intermediate stop at Cole for a couple of items before he moves on.
Yeah, you have to, in order to get all 3, you have to get the magic armor and the flame sword out of Cole, unless it's in the secret shop in Caitlin, and the only place that we've seen as Silver Shield thus far has been the top store in Caitlin. So level 10 came up. Smashy, thank you so much for catching that. 3250, but we picked up Healmore.
So definitely a big deal for later. You want to see that spell sooner rather than later, of course. Right now, I'm not sure how important it is. Most of their combats with hurt more right now anyway, and so the heal spell with a somewhat middling HP total was serving them pretty well in the first place, but definitely later in the seed. You want to see that spell sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Mr. Holmes finding the swamp cave, makes his way to Swamp North and lets him out on the continent somewhere here. Potentially a second continent, actually.
So DK's got his coordinates. Monsieur Slime has his flame sword and his magic armor. So some more errands taking place elsewhere right now as the experience totals continue to climb. Right now DK's got about a 200 point lead over Mr. Holmes from those runners we have on stream. Monsieur Slime's got around 800. Tundra's got around 600, but also appears to be making his purchases with that gold grind money.
Yeah, absolutely. And Flame Sword, Magic Armor, and Silver Shield, the best equipment that Tundra can buy, has been purchased. Monsieur Slime, I would assume, has his Magic Armor and Flame Sword. And heading over to Caitlin, runs into a Stone Man. The sleep works, so he will be guaranteed to get away, luckily. And Mr. Holmes getting noped by a blue dragon.
I think one of the first blues we've seen this seed, if not the first. Didn't seem to be anything especially bad about it, other than it's just a blue dragon, so it sent him back home. And he immediately gets ambushed and sent back again by a Dragon Lord Breathing Werewolf, so this last couple of trips haven't been especially fun for Mr. Home.
Absolutely, I'm a little bit behind, but that is definitely a hard one to take. Meanwhile, DK has made his way into the grave. I would expect to see a gold grind from him as well. I don't know that he'll go all the way for the flame sword, because that hand axe is actually pretty lucrative. But we'll see. It'll kind of depend upon his playstyle and how heavily he favors that extra attack power.
Yeah, it's interesting to see runners' choices when they make those decisions. The hand axe, of course, is worth 15 attack power, the flame sword 28, so it's only a boost of about 13 attack power in a seed in which you already have Hurt More. So that spell's going to do a lot of the work for you, and you might opt just to wait for Erdrick's sword in that case, but it always depends on the runner's preferences.
Absolutely, and the thing that's going to make the biggest difference is what happens to be on the swamp spike tile, because the swamp spike tile is not hurt moreable. The extra attack power is going to favor the runners that have picked up the extra equipment if we don't have Erdrick's sword.
That's a fantastic point, because we already know that red dragon in Hawksness is essentially not grindable. So if there's not a good grind available there, then your other Charlock enemies, even in the zones where they exist, aren't exactly great either. So the Swamp Spike, of the enemies we've seen so far, we know that the Axe Knight has Dragonlord Breath. We know, of course, that the Red Dragon has Dragonlord Breath and is a Red Dragon. We haven't seen much from the Golem yet except the standard fare, and we've only seen the one Blue Dragon, which didn't seem to have any abilities when we spied it. So it'll be interesting to see what that Swamp Spike is for sure. That's going to make a huge difference in the seed as far as the endgame grind goes.
Absolutely. I think that the enemy that we're going to be looking for most is going to be the Armored Knight. The X-Knight is still a potential grind enemy, depending upon if there's any towns in the vicinity. But the big thing for the spike tile is that a Stoneman grind actually would be favorable for these runners. The Stoneman grind, often overlooked, is a huge advantage over having to grind enemies on the overworld.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Stoneman grind can be very underrated, especially when those overworld enemies, like I said, if the enemies that you'd typically be looking to grind on the overworld that aren't on a spike tile are actually some of the more dangerous enemies in the seed. So if that's the case, then that would definitely be an advantage. Depending on the attack power, you might like a blue dragon too, but it kind of comes down to your statistics at that point, what you'd prefer to see.
Absolutely, and I think another thing to point out is that I think we're going to see the late game grind a lot earlier than what would be typically thought of. When you think about it, the Red Dragon can potentially lock the armor, and if it does lock the armor, we're going to need some levels in order to take it on. So it's going to depend upon when they finish exploring for the token that will determine whether or not they're actually going to end up grinding before they get the armor.
Yeah, that's a huge consideration at this point, and I believe it has to be weighing pretty heavily on the minds of those runners who have already seen that Hawksness spike tile, because for all the runners in this race, not even the ones on stream, that's just such a big deal here, because that Dragonlord Breath Red Dragon can be a massive obstacle, perhaps even to a greater extent than the Dragonlord, since you won't have the armor when you have to fight that Red Dragon.
Absolutely.
Or you might not have the armor when you have to fight the dragon. We still haven't seen the overworld coordinates yet. I should correct myself. I'm not quite sure. The one encounter Mr. Holmes had with the Red Dragon in Hawksness, at least, did he see the breath? I'm not sure that he did, and he also had an overworld encounter where he didn't see it either, so he might be thinking... I'm not really sure what he's thinking, but he was headed toward the Hawksness tile there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. He didn't see the breath. I know that much. He died to physical attacks. He opened up with that stop spell, so he might be thinking hopefully that the ability is a spell, since stop spell did work, and that's actually a fairly logical play, based on what he's seen.
Yeah, I mean, based on available information, I think in a similar situation, a lot of players would decide to do the same thing. Here, it looks like he's making circles outside and has actually chosen to fight some demon knights, which, if they don't have any abilities, they can be a frustrating enemy because of their high dodge rate, but that's pretty good experience as long as you're landing your hits in good order. With Healmore, they're actually a pretty easy enemy to fight.
Yeah, I think the only other enemy that I've seen in the zone that Mr. Holmes is in currently is Green Dragons and Droll Magi's. So this is actually a fairly decent grind zone for level 10. He is headed back into Hawksness here, so maybe looking to head to that spike tile, get a little more information on that red dragon. He got lucky with that werewolf.
Not so much with the red dragon. Got not only a dodge, but then got burnt to a crisp. So now he has that knowledge too, and it'll be interesting to see what he chooses to do from here.
It's always interesting to me that the dragon family in this game actually has some pretty decent agility. Because when you think the term dragon, you think about a big lizard, and you would think that that wouldn't be that hard to hit.
And yet here we are. I'm not quite sure, but I think I just saw Monster Slime dive all the way to the bottom of Grave. We know that 5th chest was just a gold chest, so he'll be a little disappointed to see that, most likely. Only at this point searching for Erdrick's token. We know there are coordinates. We don't know what's located there yet. The token, what chests do we still have outstanding in the overworld here? Not much.
We are missing the entirety of Mountain Cave. We still haven't seen Mountain Cave. We have yet to see the Freebie Cave, and I think that's it for chests before Charlock.
So, without knowing what's on the Hawksness search spot, we know there's an Overworld search spot. We're still looking for the token in the armor. The armor's got to be on one of those, but the token could be in a chest. So we'll have to wait and see. It might be a little while before we get any further information on either of those spots, actually. The coordinates have proven quite difficult to search out based on the layout of this map, even though they're relatively close to Tantagel. And that red dragon is going to block Hawksness for quite a while, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Holmes is, he's going to check Remolder. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go for the Swamp Grind tile from here, just to see what it is, because having the information of what would be on the Hawksness Spike tile for a search item would be pretty huge. There's not a whole lot left to find, so I think that grinding is going to be the play here.
Yeah, and while you're at it, if you think the path is too difficult to count, you could also work in a Princess Rescue depending on your preferences so far as counting out those coordinates.
Absolutely, and Smashy, thank you for correcting me in chat. Garenham is still on the table for available chests as well.
So yeah, I think searching for some of those chests, trying to find Mountain Cave or Garenham at this point, and I think actually, it's about a coin flip situation whether Mountain Cave would even be in the basement of Garenham, so you could possibly have access to 8 chests if you find Garenham, and pulling Erdrick's sword wouldn't be too bad a piece of business right now either.
We have 1 out of 3 for the Mountain Cave to be in Garenham.
I'm sorry, you're right. Yes, because the Shrine Cave is outstanding, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Holy cow!
Oh my goodness! Look at that.
That is a huge level. 4 is what I saw, Smashy.
Yes,
DK.
Yeah, 4 agility there.
And level 11 is where the MP and HP lie for this seed. So those runners are going to be very, very happy to see that HP gain.
No kidding, a huge and necessary boost.
And 21 MP to roll it all out is going to be absolutely fantastic as well. It's going to give you almost 3 more hurt mores. So you're going to be looking at a pretty good idea there. Oh, and DK found another cave over on the second continent here. Bonus cave. It's a freebie. We'll take it. Gold. Interesting, DK decided to settle for the full plate instead of going those few extra chest opens to grab the magic armor. Wonder if he took a death there.
I know that. Let me think. I know I saw him take a death outside of Cole, but I thought it was after he had visited the shop. So that is interesting. I had just sort of mentally checked off that he had purchased the magic armor. So wasn't actually looking at the time. So to see that he did purchase the full plate instead is interesting.
Wow, and that magic armor paying dividends for Monsieur Slime. He gets a very, very nice roll of only 18 damage. Takes 32, but is able to take down that Armored Knight in 2 hits. That is a very, very lucrative encounter for him.
Yeah, those Armored Knights seem to be pretty good business right now. The rest of the Charlock set, perhaps not so much, but if you get those Armored Knights, especially once you pick up level 11 and have a lot of HP, then that's a good enemy to find as long as you've got the resources to hurt more at a couple times.
No, Monsieur, what are you doing? That's Mountain Cave. And Mr. Holmes and Monsieur Slime and Tundra are all on the same area of the map. DK headed towards that same area.
Tundra is going to get there first, and it is Mountain Cave. Or is that? No, he just went through Swamp Cave. I'm sorry. That is Swamp Cave.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw him
Swamp.
go right and then up and then assumed that was Mountain Cave, but no, that was Swamp. I hadn't actually seen Swamp South on screen to that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tundra is going to get his big level 11 too, so right now all of our racers on stream will have that big HP and MP gain. So I think it looks like a lot of checking of second continent going on right now. Hopefully the enemy sets will be kinder to our racers than they've been so far. The extra resources in terms of HP and MP will certainly help as they try to extend their exploration and find Garenham and a couple of these remaining outstanding locations.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking over our stats right now, we actually have a pretty decent lineup. Agility is a little lower than I would like to see at level 11, but the rest of our stats are actually pretty well-rounded.
Yeah, it's not been bad. The levels have been, like we were talking about, reasonably healthy. We, of course, got a couple of big HP Got that big HP and MP gain. The strength has been trickling in pretty consistently, and I think Mr. Holmes has just found Garanham.
Yep. Oh, maybe. It is Garanham. Okay. So 3 checks here, and we also have access to a cave.
Yeah, whichever cave it is, it's going to be one that he's looking for. Shrine Cave or Mountain Cave at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless what he's looking for happens to be in these Garanham chests, but one can only get so lucky. And in fact, nothing much of use. Some herb and a gold, and not much else there in the back of Garanham, so now he's going to take the staircase and see what lies beneath.
Yeah, and Smashy pointing out kind of what I had alluded to earlier, Garanham is just west of Swamp Cave. So Swamp Cave grind is a very realistic possibility here.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to seeing the swamp tile. Mr. Holmes might head that way directly, and I think Smashy also pointing out Tundra is working on the count here, so this will be interesting if he actually manages to make it, but I think based on his pace right now, he might have bailed out of that, realizing that it was not quite possible.
So to answer DW Edit's question in chat, currently DK has a small experience lead here. Exploration Rise were pretty much dead even for these runners, but that is soon to be rectified. Hopefully Tundra pulls off this count with no real major problems. The coordinates are small. There's a reference point that's pretty easy to follow, so it's not too terrible. And Tundra has found Breckenary.
Yeah, I think that's our first Breckenary sighting we've seen. I'm not sure if Tundra is able to pick up the count from where he was or not. Looks like he's winding his way north again, and I'm not sure that he's going to find much up there based on the map that we've seen so far. Well, here's a cave upcoming.
And that has to be the mountain cave.
Yes, it does. And it is the mountain cave, so we might get a look at the 5 chests that are in here. Among key items we're still looking for that might be in these chests are possibly Erdrick's token as well as Erdrick's sword, but everything else has been collected at this point. So, gotta clear these though in case the big stick is there.
Absolutely, and another thing that's interesting to point out is that DK has picked himself up the Princess Blue Dragon for the Swamp Spike tile. That's actually fairly decent, I would say. It's not one of our problem enemies, and he's going to be able to continue to gain experience at a reasonable pace. 180 experience per Blue Dragon, that's pretty decent. And meanwhile, Mr. Holmes grinding the desert in Hawksness, getting a little unlucky with some golem encounters, but these werewolves, you can take them down pretty consistently with 1 hurt more.
So with this Princess Rescue, DK is going to be the first racer on stream at least to acquire Gwaelin's Love, which is essentially a GPS. It enables you to figure out what your coordinates are anywhere on the map, and that's what helps you find the Overworld search spot whose coordinates you can pick up in Callan. So he might get first crack at the Overworld search spot here, and that would be some very important information as well as some very important equipment one way or the other.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, Monsieur Slime picking up level 12 has taken over 2nd place for experience.
So it appears Mountain Cave is a total bust.
Yep, and the sword is guaranteed to be in Charlock Castle, and Hawksness is indeed required.
So what a ridiculous catch-22 this could turn out to be. If the sword is in Charlock, and the red dragon is guarding that armor? Oh man.
Well, if it's guarding the armor, they're guaranteed to be able to get the sword before they fight the red dragon. So that's a good thing.
That's at least
The
a good thing.
downs-
Sorry about that. Monsieur Slime is taking a run at it right now, actually, and it hasn't caught a breath yet, so this is interesting.
This could be huge for him.
Oh, we got him! Wow.
Alright, so very,
And
very...
the armor. Oh my goodness, what a huge get for Monsieur Slime right there.
Absolutely. Level 12 proving to be enough, and a low breath chance equals armor.
For sure. That armor is the best armor in the game. 28 defense. It cuts by 1/3 the damage from all breath and spell damage, and enables you to walk freely over those damage tiles like the swamp tiles and the barrier tiles.
And it also restores 1 HP per step. It is probably the most broken piece of equipment that I have ever seen in an RPG.
Undoubtedly. There's always, the laundry list is so long that I always forget at least one thing from it when I'm trying to recite all of the stuff that it does.
And DW edit pointing out adamant, so that would be a good point if I actually knew anything about Final Fantasy. I know about Final Fantasy 1, and that is the extent of my Final Fantasy knowledge.
So Mr. Holmes also giving this red dragon a try, and he's getting much worse breath luck than Monsieur Slime did. He's got 2 in a row, and is just looking for a window in which he can safely try to attack. And didn't find one, unfortunately. Had to swing on 65, kind of grew... was probably thinking he needed to try to get the fight done, and that swing didn't do it, so he's going to get sent back to Tangential.
Yeah, the strength, though, is really, really come around with it steadily trickling in. Even with the Flame Sword, able to do that 32 damage, I would not be surprised to see him go at it again, because that's potentially 3 to 5 swings to take down that red dragon. That's not asking for too terribly much, just a little bit of luck.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, he did not get it in that fight, so we'll see. I would imagine, like you said, that he's probably going to go right back. So with Mountain Cave also being clear of any key items, I believe that also assures us that our token will be on the Overworld search spot, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. So the search spot, 23 south, 24 west, a little bit difficult to count, but it should be doable from the second continent. So we might see a couple of them choose not to pick up the princess, just because where Tundra was picking up his count from is directly south of Tantagel Castle.
Yeah, so far, DK is the only featured runner here on stream who has rescued Gwaelin and picked up the GPS, and it looks like he's going to try to find his way to those coordinates in the near future, although now that he's found Garenham, he's probably going to make a run at Mountain Cave first, I would imagine.
Yeah, that big stick would make a huge difference.
Mr. Holmes again seems to be getting pretty poor breath luck with this red dragon. Finally finds a window for an attack.
Yeah, this is brutal in comparison to Slime's. Slime's luck. He's just not quite getting it.
And the red dragon had the back pocket mystery heal, so isn't that fun? Fortunately, Mr. Holmes was able to outswing it after a couple, so he's got his armor now too.
Absolutely, and he will be very, very happy to see that.
I mean, that's so big at this point. There are so many enemies that we've seen. Well, I should say there are many enemies that we've seen frequently in the Overworld that have the Dragonlord Breath. and so having the armor just mitigates that damage by so much, and it helps you save resources and stay alive for the rest of your exploration. So very big deal to pick up the armor if you can do it.
Well, not only that, but the armor is pretty much required. I mean, it's not strictly required to beat the game.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Not just speaking in an immediate sense. Of course, you want the armor to beat the game, but at least to try to get the rest of the errands done, it's going to make that process a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing here is who's going to get to the token first, because the token is the last remaining item for Charlock access. And hour and 4 minutes in, the seat's been a little rough, but we should be able to start seeing people enter Charlock here before too long.
Yeah, I imagine that once we manage to get the token, and I think, is that our first Charlock sighting over on DK's screen right now?
That is the first time I've seen it. I know that Tundra was over in this area earlier, but I'm not 100% positive that he saw it. And DK gonna attempt to run from the Red Dragon. Unfortunately, gets run blocked, sent all the way back to the castle. That is just some... that's agility for you. They don't have a huge amount of agility, but I believe that they're at 60 right now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so if they're at
60s, yeah, 61 we see on screen thanks to our trackers.
Yep. So at 61 agility, you're at about a 30% chance to run away from them. So that's not terrible, but it's not great. I think that trying to outlast it with Healmore would have been a better option, even though he wasn't at full resources.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. It kind of depends on whether he felt he needed to explore further that direction or not. But even getting back over to Swamp Cave is a bit of a walk, so that can be difficult. Really interesting right now. Tundra, DK, and Mr. Holmes, at least as I had started that sentence, all had 3,900 experience points. Monsieur Slime's actually in about the 4,300 range, so very close in experience right now. It's really only the elements of exploration that are separating our on-stream runners right now.
3 power, 4 speed, 2 HP, 11 MP, and a pickup of the spell. Oh, he swung through it a little quickly.
Yeah, didn't quite catch what that spell was either, I'm afraid.
Return. Thank you, Cyberdark. Appreciate that. You are so much better at this tracking thing than I am.
So Monsieur Slime is in the process of using the GPS right now, so he's trying to find his way to the coordinates presently, and of course Tundra returning the princess right now as well. So we'll see what comes of this and who manages to win this race right now, which is kind of in a microcosm the race to the token. Whoever can kind of get there first has an advantage because it means they'll probably get to their grind first. At least of those who have picked up the armor so far.
And I don't want to pull away from Tundra's play here. Tundra hoping for the armor on the Overworld search spot. This is probably the play that I would make. I would hope for the armor to be there. If it's not there, well, at least I did something productive. I'm still gaining towards that end game.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree. I think in a similar situation, that's probably what a lot of people would do. Hawks, you can definitely make a case for trying Hawksness, and I think the big part of that is that Hawksness is so close to home. So when you walk there, even if you fail your attempt, it didn't cost you that much travel time, which can be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cole is just a couple of steps outside, so it's not too terrible of an idea. I don't think that it'd be dreadfully efficient in comparison to the Blue Dragon grind. I mean, you are giving up 75 experience, but you're going to be burning far less heal bars.
That's for sure. So I think DK did just make an attempt at the Hawksness spike and got breathed and sent back, so I assume he's going to go straight back there now. Did not have much luck on his coordinate endeavors so far, so if he thinks that this is the play, he might keep going back to Hawksness until he finally breaks through here. Nope, he made it a sharp turn. Oh no, there. Yes, he did head back to Hawksness. Okay. So DK is going to make another attempt here at the Red Dragon on the spike and try to get his armor as well. Mr. Holmes, meanwhile, appears to be zeroing in on the search spot where Monsieur Slime actually presently finds himself. He has picked up the token, so we know Mr. Holmes is getting very close. Hopefully he's picked up his landmarks okay. I imagine, even though he missed on that first swing, he'll probably do a little bit of a search grid here to try to find the token. And he's very close, he's almost there, so... And... Oh man, hasn't found it yet, so he's going to keep looking. But Monsieur Slime is the first on stream to pick up that token, the all-important last piece that they need in order to find the rainbow drop.
I think he's a little far north here. I think he's a couple of steps north. There it is.
Yeah, so I'm sure it took a... He's got it. So it probably took a little longer than he would have liked, but deployed the search grid and it worked out, so he's got his token now too. Monsieur Slime has his rainbow drop, so I would assume we'll get to see his grind choice pretty quickly, and I would guess with almost near certainty we're going to see some blue dragons here.
Well, and definitely looking at the numbers, crunching some numbers, looking to see where we're at in terms of not only finishing the game, but which grind is actually going to be better for him. 118 attack power against red dragons actually isn't too terrible, but it looks like he is opting for the blue dragon strat here. Maybe not, maybe he's making me a liar.
Naturally, as soon as you started to say that, he makes a beeline toward Hawksness. This is really interesting. This is a very interesting decision. Really quickly, thank you for the raid, those of you who are watching the Fur on Burgundy broadcast program. Welcome aboard. We're about an hour 12 into this one. I'm Archfield Monk, joined by the Amused Miniature. We've got Monsieur Slime, Tundra 83, Mr. Holmes, and DK9146 here on stream tonight. And right now, Monsieur Slime is the first to hit grind and go mode, although Mr. Holmes is right behind. And both, it looks like, are headed into Hawksness, which is an interesting choice because we've got a Dragon Lord 2 Breath Red Dragon on this spike tile. Just outside of Cole, though, so interesting grind decisions here as we start to ramp up toward the conclusion of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing here is that Mr. Holmes has the knowledge that Stop Spell hits red dragons fairly consistently, at least. And he knows that they have heals, so we might see some Stop Spell strats here.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're kind of this strength, the attack power is in kind of this in-between spot where I think they're likely to average a little bit more than about 3.5 swings per fight. So when you're in that spot, you're likely to trigger the heal from the red dragon pretty frequently. Now, whether or not that impacts your ability to kill it, it's kind of a wasted turn for the red dragon since you're going to get to attack again, but it does slow things down.
Yeah, it definitely does slow things down. They're going to be burning a lot of heal mores here, as I had mentioned. But the big thing here is that the Red Dragon having a very, very large range for what acceptable HP damage is to kill it. It's going to be a little better than the Blue Dragon, so who knows? Maybe they know something I don't.
Monsieur Slime does pick up level 14. That was 2, 2, 10, and 6, I believe. So a decent level. Some more hit points were definitely needed. And now we've just got to get kind of the rest of the way here toward our preferred attack power totals. Granted, we know that Erdrick's sword is in Charlock Castle, so that will be tacking on some too, presumably.
Mr. Holmes picking up a golem in Hawksness, remembering that he has seen them here, going to be doing decent damage to them, and has the Heal More spell, and they're a little more friendly than that Red Dragon is, so this is a nice pickup before he has to return to Cole. Meanwhile, Monsieur Slime has decided that this probably isn't the greatest grind in the world and is going to go try his luck with some Blue Dragons here.
I think Mr. Holmes also just kind of noped out of Hawksness, so I would assume he's also going to make a similar decision here. He's actually on his way to Cantlin.
Well, the attack power is there for level 14. I would assume that we're going to see a Charlock dive here pretty quickly. 67 agility is definitely going to be an issue, but these runners have plenty of attack power to work with.
Yeah, definitely. With Erdrick's sword, that will be bumped up to 132. So Mr. Holmes, I think, actually went to Cantlin because that appeared to be his quickest key buy on the way to get the rainbow drop, and then I would assume he's actually going to head toward Charlock. So the Charlock enemy set we've talked about a little bit before, but just for those especially just joining the stream, we've got at least werewolves, axe knights, and red dragons with Dragonlord breath. So perhaps a little bit more dangerous than usual. Even the wizards, which on this agility can be somewhat challenging to run from, have the sleep and hurt more combo. So could be a slightly treacherous Charlock depending on what enemies were rolled within.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to make a big difference. This is one of the few Charlocks where I am hoping to see armored knights. Stone Men would be the other more favorable enemy, as well as blue dragons. So those are the ones that we're hoping to see most commonly.
Yeah, the golems and stone men have lower agility, so they're a bit easier to run from, and we haven't seen any abilities from them that would prove to be dangerous. So as you're going toward Charlock as a runner here, you definitely got fingers crossed that you're going to see those enemies that you want to see and not so much the others. So yeah, I guess it's about time now that we're closing in on a Charlock entry here. We've already got some pyramid game guesses going on in chat, so we should probably start discussing that process, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pyramid game's based off of the TV show, I would imagine. I've never actually seen the TV show, but I would assume that it's off of the $100,000 pyramid. But I don't participate in it because whenever I'm not running a seed, I always hope that it's the judge's table, which is the vanilla spot.
That is very fair. So the idea is there are 6 chests in the Charlock Treasury on the bottom floor of Charlock Castle. And I believe that the chests each have an assigned dollar value. Bottom left is 50. Bottom middle, if I'm getting this wrong, somebody please stop me. Bottom middle is 100, bottom right is 150. Middle left is 200, middle right is 250? That doesn't sound right. Somebody should do this who actually knows what they're doing. I think I need to brush up on my game lore.
300 is the top one.
Is 300 the top one? Okay, that didn't seem right for some reason. Okay, good. Hey, I was right about something. That's 1 for today. I'm going to make a tally mark on my notes here.
You managed to escape the commentator's curse this time.
Once and only once. That was my once.
Yeah, it's really entertaining to actually run this game. McGrew has put in a lot of work and a lot of effort, and it definitely shows. He has taken a game that is a 6-hour slog and has basically modified it to the point where it can be beaten in roughly about an hour and a half. And a lot of that is just due to experience elements and things of that nature. But if you want to try the randomizer for yourself, absolutely give it a try. The Discord community is extremely helpful. We have a single part of the Discord that is just dedicated to training and the amount of tech that goes into this game. It is insane. So yes, Chad is sitting there meeting me about an hour and a half. As most of you know, it's been a little while since I've been in the community. I'm used to seeds that are about an hour and a half. I have heard about the seeds that are 2+ hours, but it's a fantastic randomizer. It really is. It takes a very, very old school game and makes it replayable. And it's an absolutely great time, and we have a huge community. It's absolutely phenomenal to be a part of.
Completely agreed, 100%. You see the link to the Discord there provided by the community's lead tracker, CyberDark86, who's also tracking this one tonight. So this is interesting now, though, because what I see happening, Monsieur Slime actually went and used the rainbow drop, and I thought, okay, he's going in. But he's actually out looking for something else now, and I wonder, has he missed something that he thinks he might still be missing Erdrick's sword on the Overworld somewhere? And beyond that, Mr. Holmes, I thought, also probably headed toward Charlock. But I'm not quite sure that he's seen Charlock yet.
I don't think that Monsieur Slime has seen the bonus cave, so he might still be looking for that. And Diabetes, that is why I'm fired from rolling ever.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Cyberdark. If you've taken a spin at rolling seeds, eventually you're going to roll a clunker and you're going to take a seat in the penalty box for a while. Nobody will want you near the controls.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's true for any randomizer. I mean, it's just, we talk about agility being just a number. I think that the same goes for rolling seeds.
Entirely true. So, Mr. Holmes and Monsieur Slime both in the neighborhood of about 6,700 experience right now. Tundra's a little bit behind on 57, but seems to be making good work of his grind, just picking up level 14 a moment ago. And DK, also still exploring around a little bit. Everybody has their armor at this point. Everybody's got their full equipment. It's just a matter of now for DK to try to find Erdrick's token and pull the rainbow drop. So we'll see what happens as we continue going forward here. Certainly a very exciting race in this one.
Yeah, this endgame is going to be fantastic to see as well. Oh, Monsieur Slime has not seen Mountain Cave. That's what he was looking for.
Yeah, I was wondering if that were the case, because I didn't quite recall him having entered Garenham, and finding the Mountain Cave. But he's in the Mountain Cave now. He's going to be a little disappointed to see that it's clear, but at least he'll have the knowledge that the sword is in Charlock, and that will probably free him up to make his dive. He's pretty close to the next level too, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just goes ahead and takes the next 15 for insurance.
Yeah, and very unfortunate. DK has mixed up his east and west coordinates and has unfortunately headed to the east instead of the west.
Oh man, that feels absolutely dismal when it happens. But I'm pretty sure everybody's done it at least once. I probably do it more often than I should, but it's easy enough to do. So the way the GPS works is that it actually is relative to Gwaelin's position, because this apparently revolves around her. So the coordinates will be inverted. So for instance, our coordinates today are 23 south, 24 west. So when you're looking to read the position from the GPS, you're actually looking for 23 north, 24 east.
Yeah, and absolutely, and to be quite frankly honest with you, I actually mixed up the coordinates in my tournament match against Game Boy F9, and I wasn't very happy about it, that is for sure.
No, it's just heartbreaking. So, at least in this case, being that much further away might not be as big as impediment as it might be in some larger coordinate sets that we've seen. But here we go. So he's going to try to Fairy Water repel some enemies and head back out on the search again, back through Swamp Cave.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to point out, is just the sheer amount of skill that these runners have. The runners put in a great deal of time into learning the game mechanics and how the mechanics work. So, for instance, learning the attack formula and how the hero deals damage literally means the difference between defeating the Dragon Lord a level early and grinding that extra level at the end of the game. So these runners have a tremendous amount of knowledge as well as understanding how different mechanics work. So they have put in a phenomenal amount of work into running this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly the runners we've seen on stream here today have made an expert display of things. Just as a side note, you mentioned the levels there. Mr. Holmes and Monsieur Slime both have picked up level 15, that insurance level that they were headed toward, and it didn't turn out to be much of a policy, actually. Only 2602, so they did pick up some more agility. That can never hurt. They're sitting at 73 right now, so that's a little bit more in your green level there, as you see on your tracker, and it'll give them a little bit better chance of running away from those enemies in Charlock.
Yeah, absolutely. And, agility is everything right now. As we discussed, half of our Charlock set has either the Wumbo combo or Dragon Lord 2 Breath. So these runners are definitely looking for some extra agility here.
Yeah, anything you can do to help preserve those resources. So right now, on level 15 at least, with Erdrick's Sword, you'd be looking at 134 attack power. And what that tells us is that our runners, in order to be safe, they're probably going to want to try at least to preserve around 11 heal mores if they can. The fight's winnable on 80. The HP is there to get some doubles, perhaps. But if you just really want to kind of seal the fight away, you want to try to get down there with most of your resources, if not all of them, if you can. So having that extra agility is a major boost toward that end.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes is going to be very, very disappointed, as Monsieur Slime was as well. Mountain Cave holds nothing.
Yeah, so both of them have spent this time. I was wondering if that was also what Mr. Holmes was looking for, and he's found it, but he's not going to be very happy about it. So now it's just a matter of... it looks like Monsieur Slime is headed back toward Charlock, perhaps. He's going to stop off in Garenham first. But yeah, it's just kind of a race to the finish at this point. And Tundra, actually, it looks like, has gone ahead and entered Charlock Castle. So this is really interesting. Tundra's first person in, it looks like.
Yes, he is. And the top floor is crawling with golems. This is exactly what we want to see.
Undoubtedly. I mean, you couldn't hope for much more than just kind of a big golem set here on the first couple floors, because everything else is very dangerous. So that's about the best you can hope for.
Yeah, this agility, you're definitely going to be burning some resources heading towards the bottom floor. So with this agility, if you run into an Armored Knight, you're going to likely see these runners just beat them down instead of trying to run from them.
Yeah, a very strong possibility, because you just, like you said, you have to try to hang on to those resources, and running from an Armored Knight on this agility is not efficient. Very interesting to me here, Monsieur Slime has apparently decided to continue grinding. He's going to take some blue dragons in Swamp Caves, so he must not like this level, or I even hate to mention it, but sometimes when you're this late into the seed, you might not think about the Erdrick sword differential too. So either he just hates the agility, which I could totally see, even though they're in the 70s now on level 15, or maybe there's a missing component of the calculation there, but I am surprised to see him return to a grind at this point.
I definitely would like to think that it's an agility thing. With everything that we've seen in this seed, agility is the biggest difference maker in terms of Charlock when you don't know what's down here. So far, the first few floors have been very, very friendly to our runners. We have yet to see one of those enemies with the Dragon Lord breath. Lots of blue dragons, lots of golems. This is just a very, very friendly Charlock dive so far.
Yeah, no kidding. I think there was one werewolf, I think, in the first basement, but other than that, we've seen exclusively the favorable enemies, and of course, as soon as those words come out of my mouth, Tundra runs into an Axe Knight in the third zone. So that could be a little treacherous. You can blame me for that one after the race is over.
Absolutely, but getting some good luck, he's able to run away from those Axe Knights, making his way towards the bottom floor here. It's going to be a very, very interesting thing to see here, as he will be picking up Erdrick's sword very soon.
Well, we hope so, at least. So far, 4 chests down, no sword. Got the fairy flute in that $100 chest. Is it going to be 150? No. Guess what, everybody? We're headed to vanilla.
Hey, I was right for once.
That was yours. We all get one, right? So here we go. A resource-intensive Charlock has potentially resource-intensive Charlock. It's actually turned out to be a pretty clean dive for Tundra so far. But he's going to have to make his way back to the vanilla chest to pick up the sword, and then make his way back down to the final basement to try to beat the Dragon Lord. And so that's going to expose him to a little bit more danger here.
Absolutely, and I think the only worrisome thing is this bottom set of floors here. We've seen a wizard now, mostly Axe Knights. I think I did see a Star Wyvern as well. But that's definitely favoring those Axe Knights in terms of encounter weight, and your luck is only going to hold out for so long.
So far, so good, though. He's made it back out of that zone that looked like the most dangerous one, so the rest of the trip to the sword itself ought to be relatively clean. We'll see what happens. This Star Wyvern is not cooperating.
No, not at all.
You hate to have to burn a heal more in an enemy like that, but sometimes you just get those bad rolls.
Oh man, that's absolutely terrible. He can still win, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
No, definitely, he's got the resources for it, but just has to make it back down there, which is tricky.
As I was saying, meanwhile, Mr. Holmes making the same play as Slime. He is back grinding on blue dragons. So definitely a bit of a route divergence.
Monsieur Slime did just pick up level 16, and that looked like a pretty empty level. I only saw 2 statistics. That never bodes well.
Yeah, that is
2 hit points and 4 magic points. That did not move the needle if agility was the problem.
Yeah, and at this point, he's got to be wondering, man, we just passed the hour and a half mark. I've been in go mode for about 10, 15 minutes now. I got to make a move, and we'll see what he decides to do here.
Mr. Holmes did pick up the level, and he's fighting another blue dragon, so it looks like he's made his choice. Monsieur Slime, on the other hand, might have decided that he's not willing to risk another empty level, because he's headed toward Charlock. Tundra, meanwhile, deciding to fight that blue dragon. He's back down into the next to last basement, and so he's back into the zone that had those wizards and axe knights. And very interestingly here, he's opted to stop spell this wizard with kind of minimal resources remaining. So this is a very interesting choice.
I'm wondering if he's thinking about potentially grinding a level if he doesn't succeed on this dive. That Erdrick's sword makes wizards a cakewalk. It's much safer than trying to run away for sure.
Yeah, decided to take on that Axe Knight too. Very interesting. So, wow. I mean, this has been a fairly expert dive to this point, I feel. He's done a very nice job here, and it's just a matter of now, you know, can he get the encounter luck he needs in order to survive? But
oh, and there is an armored knight. That is very unfortunate.
He's going to try to take that down too.
He gets it.
Gets it.
He does.
He does have 5 herbs left. So, and ooh, look at this. Lands in an opening crit on that armored knight. Good grief. That's pretty big right there. To get a no damage armored knight fight.
Yeah, absolutely. We were seeing tons of Axe Knights earlier, so hopefully his luck continues to hold out here. As he definitely made the risky play here in comparison to the other runners, diving at level 14.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't say as I blame him. I think in this seed it was worth it just to see what the enemy set was, because you kind of have to have that knowledge. If it turns out Charlock is terrible, then you know you have to go back and grind. But as it turned out, the first couple of zones actually weren't that bad. It's just been this last zone that has been the trickiest. And he's doing his best to try to navigate it while still having enough resources left to take on the Dragon Lord at the end.
Monsieur Slime, right on his tail, is in the second to last floor, or the last floor before the last zone of Charlock. Going to be pretty disappointed with the pyramid game, but is going to continue to the vanilla spot. We'll see whether or not those couple extra levels make a difference or not. And Tundra does pick up level 15 as well. Okay. I see what he's doing. He's trying to pick up that last level before the Dragon Lord there.
Yeah, that appears to be the case. He'll be a little bit over it with this Armored Knight Spike, but he did get through. Is he going to pull any more encounters on the way? Oh no. First time run block from this Armored Knight. Second time, he's on very thin ice here. And he's not going to make it. Oh man, a heroic attempt. And that would have been a doable Dragon Lord fight if he made it over there, but even after the spike tile catches that Armor Knight, just such bad luck right there.
Absolutely, that was definitely a spot of some very, very rough luck. But he does know that Charlock is definitely doable at this level, and he doesn't have to burn the resources to go back up and get the sword now, so we will definitely see him go straight back into Charlock.
Meanwhile, Monsieur Slime still has to go on his sword retrieval trip, so he's got to go up a couple of floors, make his way to a different staircase, so this will take a little while. It will be really interesting to see down the stretch where our runners end up, as Mr. Holmes just deploys his rainbow drop so he can enter Charlock Castle on level 16. So he's going to have to make his trip to the treasury, which will end in certain disappointment. So still a lot going on here.
Yeah, so level 16 here was an empty level, but interestingly, Mr. Holmes is only 500 experience away from the next level. So potentially seeing him grind to the next level on the way down is a very, very realistic possibility, especially with these red dragons. Holy cow.
Is this the... Wait. Back up. There are red dragons in the first zone. Have we seen this to this point?
No, we have not.
That's utterly ridiculous. How... We have seen so many passes through the first zone of Charlock to this point, and that's the first red dragon we saw. I'm sure Mr. Holmes is going to be thrilled to hear that one after the race is over.
Oh yes, of course. But meanwhile, level 17 for Mr. Holmes, 1 power, 1 speed, 15 HP, and another 9 MP, though. That is actually fairly large. That gives him quite a bit to work with.
This is really interesting, actually. He could theoretically win without having to get the sword at this point, couldn't he? If he death necklaced?
Yes, he could. It would be interesting to see. It's going to be dependent upon how his Charlock goes, but it looks like he's continuing to grind.
He's taking another level. This is really surprising to me, I have to say. I figured that bump would probably be it. Like I said, he doesn't necessarily need the sword now. So this is a little surprising to me, I have to admit.
Well, he hasn't seen the lower floors of Charlock yet, so we got to keep that in mind as we're trying to discern exactly why it is he's doing what he's doing. He doesn't know that there's not a lot of fire breathers on the way down, so he's expecting to burn resources.
Monsieur Slime, big stick in hand, is now back on the bottom floor, and it looks like he does have the resources he might need. It's just a matter of getting to the Dragon Lord with them intact. His running has gone a little bit better than Tundra's has. Tundra, of course, did not hit level 15 and get into the 70s in agility until just a little bit before the Charlock spike. So Monsieur Slime doing some good work here, and he's got a shot as long as he can make it to the Dragon Lord.
Yeah, I think that Monsieur Slime is in a very good position to finish. As long as the rest of his walk goes well. 6 herbs in hand, uses one of them, gets a wizard, but shouldn't have 2. Oh, never mind. And there is the sleep.
I was just about to say, oh, this should be fine, and then catches a sleep from the wizard. So that'll make your heart stop for just about a half second as a runner when you're like, I'm almost there, and then to catch an enemy that has sleep and you don't know how long the lock will last. Terrifying.
Yeah, probably the worst experience that I've ever had with that particular instance. I'm on the bottom floor, I have the sword in hand, I've beaten the spike tile, I run into a wizard right before the Dragon Lord, and I only have 60 agility. I failed 7 times, and barely escaped, and ended up getting a Swagmore, and it turned out well.
Wow. Meanwhile, Monsieur Slime has done, I believe, 29 damage so far on his second attack. He's got plenty of resources. This is a relatively guaranteed Dragon Lord fight, barring any mistakes. He's in really good shape here.
Yeah, absolutely.
42 damage so far. And
okay.
Now 56.
What's up with the stop text at the bottom of the screen?
That I don't know.
Math Girl says to ignore that, so I will.
I will do I will do whatever Math Girl says in that regard. Unfortunately, I did lose the count, but this one's basically in the bag for Monster Slime here. He's just got to take care of business, and he's got a shot, at least, among our featured runners at first place here. So far, in the overall race field itself, nobody else has finished, so he could potentially be on pace to catch first place in the race as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Level 16 turning out to be a gamble that worked out for him. That extra agility definitely helped out a little bit, and he was able to make it down with very, very, very nice resource counts.
Yeah, still had all of his MP intact. I would imagine that it's only going to be another swing or two here until he has done well in defeating the Dragon Lord. And there we go. Monsieur Slime picks up the ball of light and banishes the shadows. So get your GGs out in chat, everyone. Monsieur Slime has indeed finished in first place in this race. The Wednesday Weekly defeats it with an SRL time of 1:45.16. So just your slime.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a well-played race by Monsieur Slime. He played a little bit conservatively towards the end, but he definitely showed some very, very expert play, just making counts on what it was he was expecting and rolling with the punches that the sea definitely threw his way.
Sadly, simultaneous disappointment about to take place on your screens as DK and Mr. Holmes are both clearing the Charlock treasury, and they're going to have no sword to be found, so they'll know they'll have to make their way toward the vanilla chest. Meanwhile, Tundra does have his sword after a previous Charlock dive, and he's going to waltz up to the Dragon Lord and be declared a fool momentarily.
Absolutely, and something to think about here, Mr. Holmes might just go for it. He might to the Dragon Lord and say, hey, I want the Ball of Light. With that Death Necklace in hand, he is eligible to utilize it, and it will put him in range. He may not go back for the sword.
Excellent point, and as you say it, it looked like he was going to go south, but actually just took a tile too many. And he did swing back toward the route to the Dragon Lord. He can do this with the Death Necklace pretty reliably. So I'm not surprised to see this play by him right here. And possibly the point of those extra levels was to try to get the insurance to do exactly this, just in case the sword happens not to be in the treasury.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, Tundra into Dragon Lord 2. A little bit less than optimal HP. He utilized an herb at 99 HP, but still gets the opening double.
So on his current resources with that opening double, that also puts him in the driver's seat for this fight. As long as he handles his business and the rolls are at least average, possibly even a little bit below average at this point, he'll be in really good shape to take this one. Oh, he swung on 47 there. Oh goodness, terrifying. Took a breath for 46 and had 1 hit point. Whew.
And you know, that just comes down to these runners understanding what the Dragon Lord can do to them. Physically speaking, at 86 defense, it's been so long, I don't even remember at this point. I think he could swing for a physical damage that could kill him, but it's a low probability, and breath attacks only have a 1 in 4 chance to kill him, and he puts himself ahead in the fight.
Very true. Yeah, I think right now Dragon Lord max melee of 49, I think.
Oh, and
about that, it might be right. Putting your breath range, just a matter of whether or not you're willing to risk that slim chance of a melee hit.
oh, And there is an 8 in the middle of the mix. That is unfortunate. Mr. Holmes also in the Dragon Lord fight. This fight, pretty free as well.
Yeah, he had, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had all 15 of his heal mores. So on the attack power with the Death Necklace would be 133, I want to say. Yes. So he's in very good shape here, for sure.
Absolutely, and joining us in the booth is Monsieur Slime. GG to you, sir.
GG.
Thank you very much, GG.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting play. It was definitely interesting to see how things ended up rolling out. Tundra was actually ahead of you in Charlock. Unfortunately, ran into an armored knight and had a little bit trouble running away from him. He was only at level 15. Got sent back to the castle, so you ended up taking him. But it was a fantastic race overall.
Thanks. Yeah, honestly I felt behind most of the time, especially when I forget what the two towns that were pretty close to each other.
So yeah, we're gonna win.
An interesting seed because there wasn't a great initial grind. It felt.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a rougher start. Lots of enemies having the Fire Breath, wizards with the Sleep and Hurt More combo. I mean, there was just tons that was dangerous on the Overworld. And then you had the Red Dragon with a Dragon Lord 2 Breath on the Spike Tile and Hawksness. And that was guarding the armor, so that was quite a seed overall.
Yeah, I felt pretty fortunate to get out of there. I think I only took one actual Hawksness attempt, and in retrospect, that seems very fortunate.
Absolutely. We pulled up the stats. Mr. Holmes went in and was just getting terrible breath luck. It turned out that it was a 50-50 between attack and breath, and then they also had the heal spell as well. One thing that I do want to ask you about is your decision to go and grind the Red Dragon instead of going over to Swamp and picking up the levels in Swamp on the Blue Dragon. That's where you chose for your grind. What was your thoughts there?
My thought was, it's 255 versus 180, so I thought it might be a little bit quicker, and I knew I could heal my way out of trouble. I think I only needed 3 of them at the time for that one level. So I decided to go take that on the way. Probably not the greatest. I think it worked out all right, but yeah, and I'll be honest, in the back of my mind, I don't have a great answer for that. The blue is probably the better answer there, but especially since it's directly on the path anyway. But I just went for red. If you watch the replay back, I'll bet you'll see me kind of wavering back and forth there for the second, trying to figure out which direction I actually want to go before heading up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are also joined by Tundra and Mr. Holmes. GG to both of you. Mr. Holmes was the only one on stream so far that has used the Death Necklace to complete the dive. So definitely a route divergence there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, thanks and hello, friends. Well, yeah, was I the only person who won with the flame sword then?
At least on stream anyway, it was really interesting. Tundra actually made his first dive on level 14 and pulled the sword out and was actually only a couple of steps away from the Dragon Lord when he got sniped by an armored knight. Couldn't afford to spend any more resources. Monsieur Slime took a very similar route to yours, but stopped at 16 and decided to go ahead and chance the dive, so that was the level at which he won. Decided to go to vanilla for the sword.
Yeah, bravo on the courage. I didn't have the the psychological fortitude to go ahead with that, so well done.
Thanks. I think I had a pretty fortunate dive out there initially, and once I cleared out the treasury, I was pretty upset. Like, okay, here's where I go get sniped, and it just worked out that I didn't. I don't know that I spent a single heal more all the way down.
So what actually ended up happening to me that made me go the extra level is I was at level 16. I said, all right, let's go. And then my first 2 encounters were red dragons.
Well,
And
if I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to point this out because we actually mentioned it at the time. We had seen Tundra and Monsieur Slime both go into Charlock Castle, and at no point during either of their dives had we seen a red dragon in Zone 1 until you walked in and got one of your first encounter.
yeah, I got 2 in a row, so I had to assume they were there. And yep, I mean that's just what happened was I ended up walking around and fighting stuff. And I was like, I just want to see what the zone distribution is, and I didn't see any more. So I was like, okay, I don't need to go for another level. Let's just go.
Yeah, it was just ridiculously poor luck that you happened to catch both of those, so we really felt for you in that case.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, well, it was stress-free. It was definitely stress-free, so I got an extra level, it was unstressful, but it's not a winning time, and meh. It was a lot of fun, though. A lot of fun getting Dragon Lord Breath over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just going to point that out. Mons here got some major luck on his Red Dragon and Hawksness for the armor. He didn't take a single breath during that fight. And then we see you maybe like a couple of minutes later go into Hawksness, and that Red Dragon just was not letting up on it at all.
And the thing was, the first time I fought the Red Dragon, which before I even knew it was a Red Dragon, I was horribly underleveled. I just had hurt more, so I'm like, oh, let's see what's there. And it was a Red Dragon, so I knew I wasn't going to beat it. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to cast Stop Spell. And Stop Spell worked. And I was like, oh, he has a spell. And it wasn't until the next one I saw they had Dragon Lord Breath, and I was like, oh crap, he probably has like heal more to go with it. And thankfully it was just heal, so I was very, very thankful, because it had resistance too, it seemed like. So Stop Spell failed a couple times.
Absolutely, and while we have Tundra in here, Tundra, very, very well played seed on your end as well. GG to you, very much so. That level 14 dive was actually going pretty well for you until the very end. It's just very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you for the DGs, but yeah, no, that dive was going really well until I had to go back up to that vanilla sort location, and then everything just fell apart there, like failing to run from combats and just everything going bad there. It was horrible.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that you really started struggling with running right as you hit level 15 with that extra agility. So it was really unfortunate, and then being catched by the Armored Knight just before the Dragon Lord was very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, but I mean, it happens. I can't win them all, I guess, right?
Did 15 even give any agility, or was that the 0023 level?
15 was the 2602, so they got you out of the 60s catching level 15 at least.
Yeah, it's still pretty brutal agility.
For sure.
Yeah, and the thing that was really, really rough for I believe it was Mr. Holmes, I saw you grid counting. I saw you utilizing the grid search there for the token. You were actually the only runner on stream that did not rescue the princess.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, the thing was, like, you had the starting castle as a reference point, right? You could see that island to the south. So I was like, all I need to do is just find that, and then it should be straightforward. But then I rushed it and got a bunch of encounters, got frazzled, and really should spend just a little bit more time when you're taking your chances like that. But I mean, it was in the general vicinity, so at the end of the day, it probably took me 20 seconds to search for it. And I mean, that's probably better than rescuing the princess and going back. So at the end of the day, I'll still take it.
Absolutely. And Tundra, one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that you made an interesting grind choice. At least I think it was you earlier on. It might have been DK, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Did you grind blue dragons earlier on?
No, I don't believe that was like right at the very start. I was trying to grind outside coal, and that was going well until I started getting Magidrolls and wizards appearing, so then I had to find a new spot. But yeah, no, Blue Dragons was not me.
Oh, okay. But overall, routing between our runners was actually fairly consistent between the four of you. It wasn't until pretty much the token being the only thing left on the overworld did we see the route divergence. Tundra found the mountain cave first, but unfortunately that didn't have anything of use in it. Mr. Holmes found the early grind, but overall, I would say that for the most part, you followed the same path overall.
Yeah, this was a crazy map. I mean, I guess there wasn't in the first continent there wasn't a ton of like divergences you could have, but the second continent had so many different things. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the last thing that I want to point out is that the top runners finishing very close together, and then DK finishing just behind you guys. That just kind of goes to the level of play for all of you. I mean, having finishes this close in almost a 2-hour seat is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that has definitely started happening lately. Like, even if one had like a graph with all of the different runners, their SRL rankings, and you definitely notice like before it would be me and Nescard and High Spirits and Angel, and now you look at everybody else and they're just like, they're pushing upwards and we're kind of going downwards, and you've got this huge parity of runners, which is stressful as a racer, but cool for the community.
Absolutely. So do any of you have any finishing thoughts?
I'm going to play a relaxing non-RNG game like Dragon Warrior 4. Kappa.
Good luck with that.
I just want to say thank you to the team restreaming and taking your time to comment and do these interviews and everything. So thank you to you guys, thank you to the runners, and thank you to all the viewers. Hope you guys all have a good night.
Cheers again, and good work, everybody. Anyone who made it through that seed is a winner in my books. And the real winners are chat for not having to race this seed.
I feel pretty fortunate to have commentated it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the beginning of the game, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, but then Hurtmar came, and all of a sudden the sea was broke wide open.
Yeah, it was a great race to broadcast. The experience was close all the way through, and it was great fun watching you guys. So GG to all of you. It was a lot of fun.
GG everyone, and I'll second the thanks to everyone who put the restream together and the commentary. I know it's not always the easiest to do, so I appreciate the effort. It just makes this a little more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Archfield, any closing thoughts from you before we close out for the evening?
I thought maybe it would be a good idea to plug the league. Yeah, got the league upcoming.
Oh, yes, that is true. So we do have the 2020 Dragon Warrior Randomizer League. I believe that the official start date was the 2nd of February, is that right?
Yes, I believe so. I'm actually linking to the Google Doc right now that has all the pertinent information. You can also find that on the Dragon Warrior Randomizer Discord, which has been linked recently, I believe, in chat. So if it hasn't, I'm going to grab the link to that too.
But yeah, so it'll be a ton of fun. Last league we had, I believe it was 64 contenders, and it turned out to be quite the league. And it was 5 weeks of Swiss, and then we did playoff rounds and the whole kabang. It was a ton of fun to commentate for, as well as racing. And the thing is that it's just a ton of fun.
Absolutely. So there you also see I've put in chat the link for the Dragon Warrior Randomizer Discord. It's a fun place to hang out if you're a little bit newer to the game. There's always people around who can help you out with anything that you might need. So go check it out. Check out the league. It's only a little while away. It seems ridiculous that February 2nd could be as close as it is, but we're really just about, 6 or 7 weeks out. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and close out for the evening. From my commentary partner, Archfield Monk, myself, the Amused Miniature, make sure that you give Cyberdark86, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name completely. I'm going to try to say Kamian Renokai for our tracking team at MathGirl718, Archfield Monk, as well as myself. Get these hardworking people a follow, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful night.